Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Music Sessions Q&A with the amazingly talented Ferguson Rogers process. Feel free to clap for them if you'd like to. Yeah. So we are here today at what is probably my favourite record store in Melbourne, and that's not me saying it just because Pat is such a gracious host, but I do also want to say that we are gathering today on Indigenous land. So I do want to also pay my respects to the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I also want to pay respects to any elders past, present and emerging. Now, for those who might not know who I am, apparently public speaker is not part of that list of things. I'm Tyler Jenke, music journalist, lecturer, author, whatever you want to be. But today is not about me. Today is about the people who are next to me. So let me scroll down my notes to actually get to who they are.
I'm Tim Ferguson.
Yes.
I got called Tim Ferguson 3 times today.
Well, so to break the mystique, I chatted to these guys only just last week, and I made the reference that when I first heard of this album, I thought it was, Tim Ferguson, Doug Anthony All-Stars. Read the press release a bit closer and realised something totally different. But yes, I should actually introduce who they are. So we haven't got Tim Ferguson, we've got Lance Ferguson over here. So,
thank you.
So you might know Lance as a guitarist and a producer with more credits to his name than Steven Spielberg, probably. Probably best known for his work as the founding member of the Bamboos. They are probably one of the funkiest, grooviest bands that you'll find anywhere. And if you've not heard them or seen them before, you are definitely missing out. Absolutely. To my left, we've also got Tim Rogers, who is the charismatic frontman of both UMI and these days the Hard-Ons as well. He's played more shows than I've had hot dinners in my lifetime, and his credits also include the likes of the Temperance Union, the Twin Set, and if I'm not mistaken, he's probably made a new band since lunchtime. Working on it? Or?
No.
Lazy day.
Well, if people keep asking, I'll keep saying yes. But anytime Lance calls,
of course,
I answer before the first ring is terminated. Draft Dodgers as well. Absolutely. We'll be back this year.
Thank you for that. I could keep going with his credits all day because I bring out TNT with Tex Perkins as well, but we haven't got the time. But together they have crafted an absolutely amazing album called Style and or Substance. Or was it Substance and or Style? I think it did change at one point, didn't it?
The war.
Okay.
Did not mention the war.
So the album is, the funk vibe of Lance Ferguson of the Bamboos mixed with the slick rock stylings and swagger of Tim Rogers. So I feel like my voice is a bit loud at times here. But it's an album that is described as the point where disco discovers that it can get dirty and rock finds its groove. And frankly, the only thing groovier than the music itself is the record on which it is pressed. And if you don't believe me, you can buy a copy. We've got an example copy over there, and Pat will be glad to facilitate. But before we get around to actually, buying any copies or anything, I guess we're going to find out a little bit more about the record and this collaboration, if that sounds okay with everyone. So I should say, gentlemen, welcome to our Q&A today. Thank you for spending the time.
Thanks for having us, and thank you one and all for coming along and taking the time out. We appreciate it.
So firstly, I feel that there's probably a few folks here today who are aware of your collaborative histories. Tim, you've worked with plenty of amazing names, and likewise, Lance, collaboration is key to your musical journey, really. But together, you've also had a few releases as part of the Bamboos name. So I guess, could you guys give us a quick rundown on how your collaborations first came about, really?
Tim and I met in the back of a Tarago during a tour with Megan Washington, where I was playing guitar with Megan. And we kind of hit it off straight away and found we had a shared passion for music and collecting old dusty records. And, when I came up getting involved in music in the 90s, I was in a whole different musical world. I was going to jazz school. I was studying jazz guitar. I was into Wes Montgomery and people like that. And I was into electronic music and a lot of dance music and stuff. So I feel like I kind of sidestepped the whole grunge thing, though my flatmates were certainly pounding it through the walls. But I just came up through a whole different kind of thing. So when I met Tim, I was certainly aware of all of his accomplishments and his legendary status in the scene, but I didn't have the I didn't have that kind of baggage of going, this guy is a rock icon, and I was able, therefore, to kind of interact with him and not fan out and not feel self-conscious. So I think in a way that was a good way in the door for me, because I do have a tendency to fan out when I meet musical heroes and all that. So I was able to just meet Tim and take him on his own merits, just as a really nice guy, as a music fan, as a great musician. And when it came time to make a record we were making with the Bamboos called Medicine Man, one of the last songs that we did was a song called I Got Burned. It was actually an add-on to the album because I felt like the record was missing something, and it needed something a little kind of felt like it needed something a little sort of southern and dirty and swampy, and I came up with this song and asked him to come on board with it, and he graciously did and smashed it. And it actually became pretty much really the Bamboos' most successful song. So that was the beginning of everything. And then if you fast forward from that about 3 or 4 years, we did a whole Tim Rogers and Bamboos record called The Rules of Attraction.
And Tim, does that all sound correct how Lance is telling it?
ABC fact check that.
Yeah, what do you need a fact check?
My 4 years of legal training, Tyler. Yes, that's exactly how it worked out. Back of a Tarago, wonderful things happen. And was struck very early because I'd known of the Bamboos really soon after they'd started doing those Nightcat shows, because Lance and I had friends in common, Stewie and other people who, large characters in Melbourne music scenes. And so I had known Lance for over a decade, and then meeting him really, I guess it's a legitimate question to ask about genres, because what we all do it, divide things up, but Lance and I probably have more in common that we don't. Enthusiasm, we've both been, in my case, a nominal leader of a band when I'm absolutely not anymore leader of any band that I'm in. I like the way that Lance leads his band. He's the boss. I love him being the boss. And just as an example, if anyone here's a musician, I'm not musicologically trained at all. I'm very slow to pick up on musicological terms, and Lance will communicate with other musicians in the best way possible, considering that relationship. So he can talk to me in broader brushstrokes, yet can talk to Yuri Pavlinov, our brilliant bass player, or Graham Pogson. There's genius musicians in musicological sense as well as strokes, but it's all done with a great sense of humour. I have often referred to him as a benevolent dictator. It's admirable, because I've been in bands, or more been at arm's length with bands where the person who has nominated themselves as leader can be a real kind of a dick, to use a common vernacular, and think that intimidation and a pursuit of perfection is the way to go. And I think that the Bamboos and anything that Lance has been involved in has a very high level of musicality, aesthetics, and definitely performance, but not at the expense of a great time for all, including us on stage. So I'm learning a lot from working in a band with him.
Because the next question I was actually going to ask you was, feel free to pump each other's tires, but you've just sort of done that, really. And, because my question was going to be what is it about each other that makes you want to collaborate? But I mean, you've got this, great personal connection, this great musical connection as well. And it's very clear that, the other has what the other seeks in collaboration and musical dexterity, I guess. Would that be correct?
It was interesting when Lance asked me to sing on I Got Burnt, in that he regularly works with the greatest vocalists in the world. Kylie Oldest is one of the greatest of all time. And so Daniel Merriweather or Bobby Flynn or Megan in particular, when I heard Megan and the Bamboos collaborate, I was just completely knocked out. And it's how I got introduced to her music and became a very big fan. And so when Lance asked me, I thought, well, what can I do? I don't have any silk or satin. I've kind of got a little bit of gravel and a whole lot of enthusiasm. I thought, well, sometimes if someone gives you the opportunity, you go, well, they've got great taste. I'll just do what I can. And Lance and Johnny Castle, our engineer, co-producer with Lance, they just sort of let me do my thing. And wonderful example of if you give people a chance, and working with the TV program recently on ABC TV Headliners. Thank you. I hope you're enjoying it. The end episode will break your heart. If you give people a chance, they can really surprise you. And Lance gave me a chance, and here we are, just really enjoying it and can't wait to get out and play live shows.
So, I mean, you feel free to keep applauding if you like. Don't stop on my account. So I guess when it does come to, collaboration for you both, what is the key? Is there a specific moment where you both sort of would say, you know what, if we're going to make music, this is the point where it's going to work? Or is it sort of a case of having, again, this, mutual fondness and respect and sort of just wanting to see where that could lead in the studio?
I feel like it's all of those things, but I feel like you've got to, I've collaborated with a fair few artists in my time, but I feel like you've got to let people be themselves. You can guide and mold a song in particular in a certain way, but you can't clip the wings of someone's inherent, musical personality or the core of what they do. And I think, Tim's whole persona and his self and his thing that he does is so strong that is unlikely to, I couldn't clip his wings if I tried anyway. But it is about, I think with this album, I made the musical side of it in terms of the grooves or however you want to define that. And then I just turned those over to Tim. Very much the same with the Rules of Attraction album, although we did get together and work on a bit of the musical side of it together too. But this time it was, here's a collection of things, go and be yourself with this. And I think that's why it works.
I wrote most of the lyrics at home, and we had a bit of a false start over a year ago. But a lot of the lyrics for what Lance had written, I would set up the demos really loud in our house and be dancing, and any phrase that didn't work while dancing got thrown out. I'd forgotten about this, and it was it really reminded me of being 13 or 14 and dancing to pop music at home. There was a Talking Heads track, or when you mentioned the Tom Tom Club before, that's really big around the house. The Go-Go's or Altered Images, Orange Juice records, and I'd never written like that. It's normally they're smoking opium and drinking absinthe and in a French chateau.
And basically you said, this is the life for me, right?
I can work with that. Yeah. But it was great writing while you're dancing, and we didn't talk about it a hell of a lot, but we wanted to make a dance record, but one that had space and space for a dancer or an enthusiast to include themselves in it. I think a lot of, dare I say it, as a 55-year-old, modern dance music kind of is relentless and doesn't give the opportunity for a dancer or an enthusiast or a performer to get in there. And Lance has always been great at not just filling every corpuscle of every song with information, which I think is not condescending, and it also invites a dancer in, an audience member, and bandmates definitely. Being in a rehearsal room with either the Bamboos or FRP is really thrilling because you can hear all that instrumentation going on. And I'm 13 again, despite all appearances.
So I guess to take a small step back there, so how did this project really sort of come about? Because obviously we've had
Grind Up. I mean, look at him.
I can't blame you.
How could you say no? He's gorgeous.
Lance, your comment.
Well, no one wants to talk about lockdown anymore, but towards the end of lockdown here in Melbourne, which was a long one, I can't remember, it was the last one, I was really missing, not that I hit the club every weekend by any means, but I was missing a group of people in a room all close to each other dancing with loud music pumping through the PA, and just that kind of unification, that bond that we feel as human beings when we dance together. It's a very primal, ancient thing. And I was just missing the fact that no one could do that. And I was just thinking about music that would create that. And I'd started creating a few sketches and grooves along these lines, but I really was sitting there getting fed a lot of gin by my better half and thinking about that, listening to music. I was thinking about the memory of, there's a few people here of my vintage, Donny Sutherland Sounds, which was an incredible music show on Saturday mornings. And I think about 1981, I was tuning into that as a youngster from about that time. And I would see, things like Talking Heads, Once in a Lifetime video clip, and Tom Tom Club, and that great kind of clash of post-disco with new wave and pop music, and that real kind of global village thing and the tropical thing that was coming through too. It was just such an incredible time of music. And I was thinking about that, how even though I've just talked about a whole lot of genres, in many ways it was like a genre-free time because all of these influences were permeating pop music. It was a really exciting time. And I thought, what if we did a record that has its DNA, not necessarily literally in the styles of music there, but the concept of a fusion of all these great influences, and how can we put a spin on that makes it something that's kind of fresh for 2024 as well.
And Tim, do you have anything to add to that one at all, or is Lance covered it all pretty well there?
He's good.
He's really good.
I want to get in the band with that guy.
Because one thing I was actually thinking of as well is, the words like dance and disco are sometimes considered like dirty words. Like, I mean, not always.
Not around us.
Not around you guys at all, because this album is quite brilliant. Like any sort of like, any aspersions people want to cast are completely thrown to the side because it's a brilliant record. But, I mean, was there sort of any apprehension in presenting this as, or using the words disco to describe it? Or is it just a case of, you know what, let's stop gatekeeping. Let's just have fun.
Well, what has happened is we share two managers, our own manager, but my manager wrote this press release that had a few kind of catchphrases like glitter in the gutter, and they were actually quite good. I was impressed. But now people think that they're quotes from us. So that I have to explain that actually our manager wrote that stuff.
Well, it sounds pretentious enough to be mine. So, okay. Well, I'll take it.
But I mean, disco is everywhere. I mean, it permeates pop music. I mean, listen to Dua Lipa's last record. I mean, it's everywhere. Disco underpins so much of pop music. And to think people were burning disco records back in the day. I mean, I've collected disco records for decades. So to me, it's just part of the fabric of stuff.
Because actually, speaking of pop there, so again, I mentioned it right at the start, but I had a chat with these guys last week over Zoom. And one thing, Lance, that you actually said was that Tim is a little bit of he's a bit of a secret weapon when it comes to writing hooks and melodies and everything. In fact, I think you said that he probably should be, co-writing with Sabrina Carpenter if he had the chance. So, thank you for filling, because I lost where my question was for a second there. I mean, do you feel that Tim has a future, working with Kylie Minogue or something like that, or is he just always going to be, one of the biggest secret weapons in Australian pop?
Well, I think everyone here knows that Tim is a songwriter of the highest order and has written so many classic tunes. It's insane. So it's I mean, Tim has, Heavy Heart. I mean, the list the list of great songs. Not only You Are My Song, this is songs within his solo career and side projects as well. And it's undeniable his talent as a lyricist and all of that stuff. But I also think Tim has a great he's got a real talent for creating a pop hook I kind of almost don't like using that word, but sometimes I get sent into co-writing sessions. It's like a musical speed dating thing that publishing companies do, and they send artists in like puppet masters to see what will create the next hit. And it can be a very confronting scenario if you're basically thrown into a room with complete strangers doing what can be and often is a very intimate kind of thing, creating music together. But there's a name for the various people in these sessions, and one of the kind of oft maligned terms is a top liner. And a top liner is a person who writes the melody and the lyrics to there might be the track guy who's on the computer and someone's got a guitar, but the top line is the one who executes the melody and writes the lyrics. And, you hear people talk about they're a great top liner. It's kind of it's a weird thing. But I was never comfortable with that kind of stuff. But if Tim wanted to, he could go into songwriting sessions with people like, I don't know, Olivia Rodrigo, whoever, and come up with hooks for days, because he's certainly capable of a real accessible melodicism that draws everyone in, I think.
When you mentioned the guy at the computer or the person at the computer, I've only been privy to those situations in other people's songwriting sessions. I've never done that myself. But when Lance and I get together, it's not methodically, let's work out how to get this on radio or how can we make this optimum. It just seems to be these, best idea is the best idea, not necessarily what's going on now or at any time in history. Just with collaboration, and I hope everyone gets to experience collaboration because it can be wonderful. But I keep going back to this story that I've told many times where it was about 1998 and I was in Los Angeles with you and mine. We're trying to make our fourth record and it was torturous for many reasons. But the record company there at the time said, we're going to send you to England to write with Ray Davies, the Kinks singer and songwriter and my hero. And I said, okay. And then I had a night to think about it and I came back to them and said, no, it's not going to happen. I said, you've got to be kidding. I said, well, Ray doesn't want to write with me. And I could just see that they wanted, we think if we give this guy what he wants, to meet his heroes, then we'll get him to write with a top liner. And just that experience of writing with somebody to get that final product just seems really unsatisfying. And I don't think I've been in as many songwriting collaborative situations as you have, just because something about it I feel very uncomfortable with. And yet that's what we write songs together. So when you mentioned before about writing with Mr. Rodrigo or with Kylie or something like that, I think I'd actually rather write pop songs with you. I mean, we'll both continue to be broke, but we'll be happy. We'll be happy.
Plus, you'll end up making amazing records like this one over here as well. So, and I would also assume that there's a good chance that some folks in the room probably would have been at the debut show that you guys had at the Nightcat. I think a few nods, that's good. So, obviously, they know what to expect. Well, I think that's what they're aiming for. So, but I would assume then that they'd have a pretty good idea of what the live experience is like. So there is a live tour on the way. But for those who haven't quite had the chance to see you guys live, what can we expect when the tour kicks off? What is the live experience like for the Ferguson Rogers process?
We've only rehearsed once with the band before the Nightcat. It was the night before, or maybe 2 nights before. They're just musicians of a caliber that's so beyond the realm of what I ever thought I could play with. Now, I'm playing great bands, the hard-ons, you might add, but the mix of musicological and just groove, swing, and being able to turn on a dime, I don't understand it, but I really love dancing out front of it. And it's really fun to write lyrics to as well, because one thing with coming to the project, that I didn't want to write songs about dancing necessarily, and wanted to just Marquis Smith was, as I think I told you the other night, was my biggest influence on this record. And I don't write anything like beautiful Mark Smith, but just that complete, that the world is your thesaurus, shaped by an oyster. And so you can really write about anything to music this good. And so with the live shows, I think we can kind of take it anywhere, and we'd like to. They're players of that caliber. It was really nuts being in the rehearsal room, and our keyboard player, handsome
Daniel.
Daniel
Begerman.
He can play anything, and yet he would just hold back and then just put in these kind of atmospheres. And thought, my God, I show everything that I can do every single night, for better or worse. That's it. And Daniel is just there. And he could just, rip Prokofiev all over that shit, but he doesn't. So there's always something to learn.
I also really do like you mentioning Prokofiev, because, you're talking about the lyrics. We've got words like lugubrious on the record, which it feels like such a Rogersism, if you ask me. Like, it would not be a project with Tim Rogers in the mix without a word like that.
What other people call pretentious, I call aspirational. And
words to live by.
Well, it's if you're going to write something, why not do what you enjoy and discovering new words? And I keep a journal, write down new words that I haven't used previously. And if I'm reading a book and there's something that interests me, I just think that ways of explaining the world as you see it, that beautiful dictionary, the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, which talks about, do you know that book that talks about, that's my favourite. And that's what interests me genuinely. And it's not to get one over anyone, because that's just not going to happen. It's to discover anything about the world can be wonderful, and discovering words and overusing them. Have I told you my favourite lyric story? So it was about 15 years ago, and I made a record called The Luxury of Hysteria, and the main songwriter that I worked with on that was Melanie Robinson, who's a cellist and an orchestrator and brilliant singer and composer herself from Western Australia. And at the end of recording, she said to me, "Tim, you've used the word coagulate 3 times on this record." And I said, "Well, look, no one's going to listen to the lyrics anyway. They don't care. It's all about, other things. Let's not worry about it." I think we got away with it. First show was at the Tanks in Cairns, this big round venue. We walked out on stage, set up everything, smattering of applause, and some drop punt from the back of the room just yells out, "Coagulate!" Found out.
Well, actually, it was funny. Only a couple of days ago, I was complaining how Cheap Trick Surrender uses the word rollin' 3 times in 2 lines. And I thought, that's a bit too much, but yeah.
3 times in
3 times in 2 lines. Yeah. Rock and rollin', rollin' numbers. Yeah. See, now you're going to hear it and you're going to think Coagulate's looking pretty good in hindsight. So obviously, we've got this new record which has come about through more collaboration and everything. But will we get more records, or is it too early to say? Because obviously, this one would have wrapped up a little while ago. Have you guys had a chance to think about more ideas for the future?
Well, I can reveal to those who are interested that I'm going to work on some disco dubs and a kind of FRP style remix of I Got Burned, which hopefully will go on a 12-inch. And am I Troy, our label guy, is here, and I'm not sure whether I was supposed to reveal that, but there you go.
He's giving a thumbs up. I think you're safe.
Anytime Lance calls, it's before the first ring. I'd love to continue working for the rest of our short, sweet lives together. It's been nothing but fun for 15 years. And occasionally life-threatening. We'll always have Newcastle, Lance. Whoa.
So one thing we were actually talking about doing with this little Q&A as well was actually giving you guys the chance to sort of talk about some records that might have been inspirational or maybe formative to yourselves. Now, I don't know if you guys had the chance to do that, so we can just talk about records. I mean, I did see a Box the Jesuit record over there if you want to start talking about them. But I do have one question actually I want to ask you, Tim. So am I correct? I heard a while ago the first record you bought with your own money.
It often happens that I'll be out and someone will go, "Oh, Tim, you don't remember me, do you?" And I go, "Oh, here we go." But also, my wife, people will say to her, "Oh, you're married to Tim Rogers, aren't you?" And she said, "Well, we're not actually, but anyway, continue." And they'll say, "Oh, mate, I've got this story. I've got this Tim Rogers story for you." 83% of the time, it's not true. 73% of the time, there's people out there who look like me who get in disastrous situations. So, how's this question going to continue?
Well, this is something I heard you say yourself once, so I'm hoping this is true.
Well, does it mention coagulate?
It can. The first record you bought with your own money, I believe I heard it was the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang soundtrack. Is that correct?
That was the first one that was bought for me.
Bought for you?
Yeah.
Now, because Rocksteady is a reputable dealer, they don't have a copy here. I bought my own copy, actually. So I would like to know, Tim.
Bang, bang, chitty, chitty, bang, bang.
This was supposed to be a long story. I'd love to know then, Tim, how did you go from a record like this to what you're doing today?
It's a natural progression, I think. I was in musical theatre before I was in rock bands. That was my my first love. Second love after onanism. But I
don't know if you'd like to take a closer look. It's a first pressing apparently. So
thank you, Tyler. No, the first record I bought with my own money was Rolled Gold by them Rolling Stones.
Well, that one's much more impressive than
no, it's a great soundtrack. It's wonderful to see that. I don't own my original copy of it, so it's lovely to see it again. Now, Lance.
Now, which soundtrack did you buy for your first record? No, I mean, whichever. What was your first record that you bought?
With my own money, it would have been Prince Charming by Adam and the Ants.
Again, I mean, it's a little bit cooler than Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, but again, if we were to throw that on now,
Pat's not impressed. I've just gone down a few steps in the ladder, and Pat's.
Really? We are bringing it all full circle today, aren't we?
Sorry, was it Prince Charming or Chitty Chitty Bang Bang? I knew I loved you.
But I guess then, obviously this sort of record that we're talking about today, not Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and the great Dick Van Dyke, he is, yes. This record that we are talking about, though, it's quite what's the word I'm trying to look for? It's some of the parts that you guys are bringing to it. It's quite funky. It's quite rocky. So are there any sort of records that I guess would influence what we hear today? So if anyone, was coming in blind or coming in deaf, I guess, hadn't heard this album and you had to say, here's some records that could be seen as an influence, what would you recommend?
This wasn't premeditated, but just right here. See, my favourite Rolling Stones albums are the ones every Rolling Stones fan hates. This is one of this is my sister's doing, because she was a big soul fan, but she loved the Stones as well, and she had Tattoo You and this album was kind of when they came out. So I heard them as new releases, but there's a song on this album called Too Much Blood, which is very much a blueprint track for FRP, I think. And it's kind of it's really like a funk groove with a horn section and then almost like a spoken word thing over the top.
So it's like an FRP track.
Yeah.
A few too many times last year when people would ask, so Ferguson Rogers process, what's it like? And I'd say, well, Lance and I talked about it. It's like the Rolling Stones albums that no one else likes. And I think Lance and I said, yeah, we're talking about that too much, but because we're amongst friends, we'll say, yes, that the Stones record that no one else likes is our template. What can possibly go wrong?
Well, I mean, I was going to say it worked for them, but I guess if they're the ones that no one likes, then it didn't quite work for them, did it? But I mean, are there any other records or artists that sort of come to mind apart from that? And no, I'm not padding for time in case you think I'm asking the same question twice.
No, when we started the record, the first song that we did was Style and or Substance, and the opening melody that I retracked, I was worried sounded a little bit too much like it was at Born Under Punches, the Talking Heads song from Remain in Light, which is also just there. And I'm not a really big Talking Heads fan, but I certainly am with that record. And we were skating. I thought that my choice of melody line was a little too close, but then we talked about it some more and thought, homage. Let's leave it in the homage territory. And then not by Public Image Limited, John Lydon's approach to lyric writing, and definitely Mark Smith of The Fall, in a way that it just kind of liberated you to do anything. Ari Up from the Slits, greatest front people of all time, was listening to the Slits records the night before going into to this record. I don't think there's much reggae or dub influence on this record, but just again that wonderful writer that just everything is about freedom. They seem to just absolutely live for freedom, which is the irony that often those people die very young.
Because that is something I definitely feel about this record as well. Not dying young, but the sense of freedom, I hope. Just this sense of freedom, like that seems to be, I guess, the biggest takeaway is that it's an album that, it feels fun. Like, sure, it might feel, at times it'll feel quite tight with like the groove and everything. It'll feel loose with the delivery. But at the end of the day, it's just fun. Is that what you guys just wanted to get out of this experience and to have other people take out as well? Or were you trying to get something else?
Yeah, it's funny because, sometimes I can be guilty of overthinking these things and, I wouldn't say over-intellectualizing, but I just think about it so much and try and, get this stuff right. And it kind of ties into what you were asking before, though, in terms of references. I do a mix with Johnny, and I'm, depending on the genre or whatever, but I'm going, it needs to sound as good as a Quincy Jones mix or a Chic mix, in this kind of, I guess, disco funk thing. And I just think you should you should find whatever the best thing is and go, that is the benchmark. And I mean, I can't make a record sound like Quincy Jones because I'm not Quincy Jones, but I can aim for that and, get as close as I can. So I'm thinking about all that stuff, but at the end of the day, and it's not to kind of cheapen it or anything, because I don't think it is cheap. I think it's one of the most important things about music, but this music is designed, it's engineered to make people forget about all that shit and have fun. And it doesn't matter what goes into it from my side in terms of trying to engineer that. The end result is if people are jumping around all together in that dark room with the PA pumping, then I feel like I've done a good job.
Because you see, when I first listened to it, it was actually last week before I chatted to you guys, and I forgot the questions I was trying to write half the time because I was getting too distracted by the record itself. So it's a great sense of escape as well, which, again, is what you sort of want people to take out of it, isn't it? You sort of want them to lose themselves a little bit.
I remember talking to someone a while ago. They were a medical professional, and I said it's such an honor to meet someone with a real job, someone who's actually like saving lives and really making a difference and actually, literally saving lives with their hands. And, what we do is a bit self-centered, and it's to be an artist and all that sort of stuff. But this person said, no, because without what you do, we cannot do what we do because we need to escape. So if our role is to provide the escape, then I think there is some nobility in that as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And Tim, do you have anything to comment on the noble profession in which you were in?
No, no.
That's fair. Well, I also feel like I should actually ask not a question I should ask. I should say, why should I have all the asking fun? I do work on open,
You've got a lovely voice.
I don't think so, but thank you, Tim.
It's mellifluous. Dances like an otter upon the meniscus of a pond.
Coagulate.
Well, thank you. But no,
Coagulates at the end like a phlegmy throat.
well, that's what I'm trying to avoid usually. But I do want to open up the floor to anyone here who may have any questions for the dynamic duo. If I can. What am I? I'm not a journalist or a good one. Does anyone have any questions at all for Tim and Lance? That's what I'm trying to say. Pat.
I'd be interested to know if you gentlemen considered any duets for this record, like getting, I don't know, any other 3 or 4 people into duets, or you just wanted to focus on Tim's voice? A fine voice that it is.
It never occurred to us during the I guess, the unfolding of this record, but it is a great idea, Pat.
I think Tim's a great duet singer.
There was a duet song on the Rules of Attraction album, which is one of my favourite songs on that record with Kylie and Tim, and it was a knockout. Yeah. So I think there's fertile ground there for sure.
I've been lucky enough to sing with Kylie a bunch, and she's just one of my favourite people in the world, not only favourite singer, but when I did a duet with Vicar and Linda Bull on the Rock Quiz TV show, and I got so many private messages from people going, man, she fucking kicked your ass out of the TV land, mate. She was just, she buried you, mate. And a couple of them, I think the first 20 I responded to and went, it's supposed to be that way. Have you heard Mary Clayton bury Jagger on Gimme Shelter? It's supposed to be that way. I wonder if she was on the same pay scale as Mick. I doubt it. But the whole thing about duets is it's not a competition. It's about to give props to the person you're talking to and to acknowledge that you don't all have the same skills. It's rare that, unless it's Tammy Terrell and Marvin Gaye or, they kind of, but for someone like Kylie and myself or Vicar Bull, yeah, of course they're going to bury me. That's what I'm there for. I'm there to be holding the spade and to pay for the funeral service. That's what duet's about. That's a really interesting question. I'd love to do that, man. And because I'm ready to go. Bury me. Whether it's Kylie or Vicar or any of the, brilliant Grace or any of the brilliant singers, even within a 10-mile radius. Yeah, bury me.
Well, you've now got some ideas for album number 2, I guess, don't we? Yeah. Do you have any other question?
I was going to say, you talked about maybe making album number 2. How many songs were rejected? Did you have any others that were and then can you work on for an album?
You read these interviews with bands and they're like, we had 300 songs that we chose from, and it's not kind of like that with me. I part of the process, if you will, is I want to kind of present Tim with these things that I think I consider the wheat and the chaff has already been, put aside. So I almost go through that editing process myself, and maybe there were 30 or 40 sketches or something, but then I'll whittle that down, and I think there were about 14 things in the end that I presented to Tim and said, I think these are the solid ideas. Yeah.
And is there a particular reason for that? Is it a case of you just want to give him the absolute best and you don't want to waste any efforts? Or is it just a case of you just, you only deal with the best that you make?
Well, the best is very subjective, obviously, and sometimes people have gone through those reject folders of mine and gone, oh, no, this really resonates with me. So that can happen. But also I feel like you can, if you put even 20 ideas in a folder for someone, it's overwhelming. You've got to kind of just be succinct, I think, and just have some kind of punchy things so there's a kind of performative aspect even to that part of it for me, where I go, all right, I got to do something that is up to Tim's standards and will, vibe him up in some way. And yeah, I think that's important, because if I sent through just everything, I think it's not good.
Yeah, I mean, not only would it be overwhelming, but the record just could almost sound sort of, I guess, scrappy by the end of it. If you just sort of putting so many ideas, and if you're just putting the best ideas out there, it's going to be a much stronger record as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions at all there? We can ask questions about the Bamboos or UMI or anything you want to.
for the first time in my life, I'll say I'll be fine. But thank you.
I'm good. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, everybody. I hope you
Yeah,
enjoyed
thank
this
you.
evening. It's been really special to see you.
Yes, no, I definitely want to thank you, Lance and Tim, for coming tonight and also for making such an amazing record as well. It is a brilliant record.
Thank you, Tom.
No, Tyler. And of course, I also do want to thank our wonderful Pat here from Rocksteady Records for hosting
Pat,
us.
yes.
Also want to thank Monique for doing the camera, Tom on audio, and also Troy from Impressed as well, and also everyone from Impressed who isn't here as well. And we're also not done here yet because we're going to wrap up tonight by giving you guys all the chance to, have these guys scribble on your records if you like to. So we do have copies available for sale. That's you're looking for that one over there in case you don't know what it looks like already. But yeah, I want to say thank you to everyone for taking part in tonight and making it such a, what's the word I'm looking for, fruitful conversation.
Thanks, TJ. Good to see you again.
Thank you.